Okay, it's 7 o'clock, so we're going to go ahead and get started. Thank you for joining us for the Crowley DIY Care and Repair Sprinkler class, brought to you by the City of Crowley and Tarrant Regional Water District. My name's Heather Bass. I'm a conservation specialist with TRWD. And before I introduce the speaker and before we get started with the program, I'm going to tell you a little bit about TRWD. This presentation is supported by Tarrant Regional Water District, which is your regional water supplier. TRWD maintains 4 area lakes and all of the pipelines needed to provide surface water to local water treatment plants. Those local water treatment plants then treat that surface water to drinking water standards and provide it to our communities. TRWD also works with many other cities in Tarrant County, like the City of Crowley or Fort Worth, Arlington, Mansfield, to provide water conservation programs like this. Conservation is an important water supply strategy to help meet the needs of a growing population, and that's why TRWD cares about providing some of this outdoor water conservation education to the community. And so our water conservation website is savetarrantwater.com. If you go to savetarrantwater.com, you can find all of our resources. You can sign up for free weekly watering advice. It's custom to your location, where every Monday you'll get an estimation of how much you should water your lawn based on the weather and your location. And you can also, if you're a Tarrant County resident, sign up for a free sprinkler check, where a licensed irrigator will come to your house and give a thorough evaluation of your home sprinkler system and let you know if there's any leaks and how you can potentially reduce some of your water waste. Also on savetarrantwater.com, there's a calendar of events just like this one, so you can check out some things that are happening in the future. And then we've got lots of water saving tips and videos as well. TRWD also partners with other organizations like the Tarrant County Master Gardeners and Texas A&M AgriLife Extension Service to provide some of this programming. Okay, so now that I've talked a little bit about TRWD, we're going to go ahead and start the program. So our speaker today is Dr. Dotty Woodson. She's the irrigation expert. She's here to talk to you about your home sprinkler system. So now I'm going to go ahead and switch it over to Dotty and let her start her presentation.
Well, thank you, Heather. And I want to definitely thank everyone for tuning in today and this evening. And, you know, it just shows a commitment that you want to save water. You want to save on your water bill, because I'm not sure how everyone understands irrigation, and some of you are probably very knowledgeable, and some of you probably, you know, just know maybe where your controller is, although I have met people who didn't even know where their irrigation controller is. So what we're going to talk about today is overwatering, you know, poor design and installation, poor irrigation schedule, you know, no routine maintenance, what causes runoff, and changing your landscape design. I'll start right there because I have most certainly done that several times. I've changed my landscape design, and when you change your landscape design, you might be changing it to the point where the water, the irrigation design, is not adequate for the way you changed it, because lawns need watering different than flower beds and herb beds and vegetable garden. They need different irrigation depending on what kind of flowers, what kind of shrubbery, what kind of ground covers, the water requirement for those plants. So we sort of have to know that. And so sometimes it's a matter of tweaking, you know, the design of the irrigation system after you've tweaked your landscape design because of that. So we'll cover all these. I'll start with this picture right here. This was put out by EPA during sprinkler, you know, fix your leak month, and that's what July is, you know, sprinkler smart month. Everyone needs to be checking their sprinkler because July and August are our hottest and longest days, and therefore, you know, we might need to look at our irrigation and understand why some of it is staying beautiful and some of it doesn't look right, and, you know, what is the problems here? So we do that. As far as runoff goes, according to EPA research, not just here in Texas, not just here in Fort Worth, Tarrant County, but average, you know, about 50% of the water that is applied by an irrigation system does not go into the ground and benefit your plants. It runs off of your landscape. Now, of course, if you are on a slope, I mean, you've probably seen this very, very much, and we'll talk about how to overcome that situation. But if we apply water faster than the ground could absorb it, we get runoff. It can't go into the ground. We have heavy, heavy clay soil, and it takes a lot of time for that water to infiltrate and then percolate down where we need it, where the roots are. So we have to understand that. The other thing we have to understand about an irrigation system are all the components that make up an irrigation system, starting with this valve. This valve is in every area. You have a different sprinkler, design, station, a zone. I don't know which term you like to use, but this is what is controlled by your irrigation controller. And your irrigation controller sends a signal to this valve, and that plunger that is stopping the water from going forward and out to your sprinkler system turns off and turns on according to the electric signal. These can also be manually done, and that's why in the video every now and then you see a finger go through there. So this is what we have to look at. What makes up a sprinkler system? And so what we're going to do is talk about all these different components, but I actually want to go back to this because I first want to talk about this. How many of you know where your irrigation, not your irrigation meter, your water meter is? Fort Worth happens to be putting in smart meters right now to send out electric signals. They're much more accurate than these old-fashioned kind. But I want you to understand what this meter does. This is the beginning of all water that goes into your house and into your sprinkler system. Very important that you understand that. The same pipe that comes out of this meter and goes into your house has a T there, and that's where your sprinkler system starts. It's the same water, same drinking water, clean enough to drink until, of course, it gets in your irrigation system. But we need to be aware of this. And people are always asking me, how can they figure out how much water their irrigation system uses? Well, you've got a counter right here, either in cubic feet or in gallons. And if you would record that number and then run your sprinkler system on your regular schedule, come back and take the second number down, after the irrigation system is run, and then subtract the first number from the second number, you will know exactly how many gallons you've used. Now, of course, if it's in 100 cubic feet, there's another mathematical step you have to take, but it's real easy to convert cubic feet to gallons. Now, the other thing that's going to be keyed off the line that does your sprinkler system is this object here, this component. This is called a backflow prevention device. And a backflow prevention device is all about protecting you and protecting city water. Because what we don't want to happen is a pipe breaks in your house and it puts a lot of back pressure, and the water from your sprinkler system, main line, is sucked into your household water. Or, heaven forbid, there's a fire somewhere and the pressure backflows into the city water system because of that huge, huge pressure that is needed. So backflow prevention device, this protects you and your city water system. So very important to understand that needs to be checked and make sure that it works properly. And then we come to the irrigation system itself. And so one of the things I want everyone to understand, Heather, give me an idea if I'm holding this correctly so they can see all of it. Am I holding it okay?
Yes.
Okay. So we have a main line, and the main line, the size of the pipe, it's all system of pipes and fittings. This main line has to do with the pressure you need right here on your irrigation head, which is 30 psi. So usually going through the main line, you have 60 psi, pounds per square inch. And the main line goes all the way across your front yard, and off of that main line, well, this is falling apart, but that's okay. Off of that main line, right here at this T, you have a short piece of pipe that goes to this valve. And that's what you're seeing on the screen is this valve. And it's very important that you understand that this valve is in every zone in your landscape. And so the main line will go through your front yard, and then it will go into your side yard, and then into your backyard. Everywhere you have an irrigation system, you're going to have the main line feeding to what we call the lateral line. The lateral lines are where your sprinkler heads are. When this shuts, it stops the water from coming through the main line and into your lateral line. And it stops when your irrigation controller tells it to. You have a runtime on there, and when it finishes that runtime, the water does not go into the sprinkler area. It stays in the main line though. And so if you have a main line leak, it's going to leak 24/7. If you have a lateral line leak, it's only going to leak when the irrigation valve is open to allow water through there. And so a lot of people look at their water bill and said, oh my gosh, I couldn't possibly have used that much water. And a lot of times it's because you don't know that you have a leak, either in the house or in your irrigation system. And I know for a fact that if you have one in your main line, it geysers up. You're going to see it right away. But if in your lateral line, you're not going to see it until this valve opens the lateral line to let water through. So we're talking about leaks, or we're talking about breaks, and every bit of that affects how the whole system works. So it's a closed system, and the system is designed to get the pressure to right here where you need the pressure for your sprinkler to work properly. So we're going to look at a lot of pictures, and you're going to see some of the things that you yourself can go out into your landscape and check. Now, of course, Tarrant Regional Water District offers a free irrigation checkup, but there's a lot of things you can check and you can repair yourself. And so then we want to talk about the sprinkler head. All new systems will have a 4-inch sprinkler head. The soil's going to come right up to here, up to this, what we call the cap. And you can see from my drawing, we've got a soil line right here. And the reason for that is you really want to be able to see this. You want to make sure that, this is off and there's not leaking out. So you want to be able to see this. And we're going to show some pictures of why that. Then the other thing you have right here, it's called the wiper seal right here. And what this is about not allowing any soil or leaves back down in there. Because if soils and leaves get into the house, is when your water comes on and this pops up and starts dispersing the water. If the leaves or grass clippings or soil has gotten up into this part of your irrigation thing called a nozzle. Very important that you understand this is a nozzle. And this nozzle is going to determine how far the water is thrown and what design it is, what the pattern is. It a full circle, quarter circle, half circle, 3/4 circle, or in your parkways, it might go, this way and not all the way around. So it's very important that you understand these. This is called a riser, but this is also called a riser, this part right here. And so this riser right here is a certain height that provides you the height that this needs to be to put up the water and disperse it where it needs to go. Now, if we take this apart, we're going to see the other parts. And so we've got the cap, and this cap can be hit and leak, unscrewed a little bit. We've got the wiper here to keep soil and leaf clippings out. And then we have the spring in here, you know, and this is your riser that goes up when you do that. And so you have to realize that some of the stuff can go wrong, and that's what we're going to go over, because I want you to have the capability and empower you to go check it out and fix it. So remember, nozzle, cap, you know, housing of your sprinkler system, your spring, you know, don't hesitate knowing that you can unscrew this cap and check things out for yourself. So don't hesitate that. And so if we're looking for leaks, the main leak we're going to find is if this cap is not tightened down, hand tightened down, not needing a tool, hand tightened down. And then sometimes right here where the riser is, you know, if this is hit 750 times by a mower, string trimmer, football player, whatever, you can get the threading right here might stretch a little bit, and therefore you might get a little leak there. And then down here, same thing. If we trip over this 750 times, we might get a leak here, might get a leak here, might get a leak over here. So what we have to do is sort of be detectives and figure out why, what's leaking. We might not see these leaks here, this leak here, this leak here, this leak here, but it affects the pressure that is going through to make this pop up. And so if your sprinkler system has worked fine for 7 months and all of a sudden it's putting out not the good spray, not the good irrigation, it's sort of weak, you know, we have to look. We have to look and see if there's a leak involved, because the leak reduces the pressure. Okay, so the common things we're going to look at is the sprinkler nozzle, the nozzle, not the sprinkler itself, but this nozzle right here is clogged up or partially clogged up, so it's not putting the water out correctly. The nozzle sprays water over a sidewalk or a driveway or a road. The sprinkler nozzle is broken, gushing water out of the top, not popping up, you know, correctly. The sprinkler head's no longer straight. You know, it's been hit so many times, it's either crooked this way or crooked this way. Therefore, you're not getting the distribution of water you want. Sprinkler causes a cloud of mist, which indicates the pressure's too high. Grass, shrubbery, and tree is blocking the distribution, because remember, it's all about even distribution. Dry landscape areas, which means you probably have a little bit lower pressure, therefore you're getting poor distribution. And so you got what we call a hot spot. And boy, if it's in the sun and the sun hits that in the afternoon, that grass is going to grow very, very, very poorly because it's dry. Irrigation heads installed too far apart and not at the recommended square or triangle pattern. So in order to get you to buy in with this, a typical water waste due to these common irrigation problems, you can see over here a lateral line leak can be about 10,000 gallons. A seal leak on your valve can be about 7,000 gallons. A break in a drip line, about 5,000. Missing or broken heads, about 10,000. Inefficiency is the other thing we have to look at. Misting due to high pressure, that's about 40,000. Misaligned heads, where the heads are spraying out into the street or onto the driveway or sidewalk, 20,000. Overspray, again, some people have it so their irrigation heads might be spraying over a sidewalk, over a patio, over a driveway, and that's not a good way to do it. And then mismatch heads, where you might have sprinkler heads like this to put out a spray, but then you have a rotor, a big giant rotor in the same zone. They put water out at different rates, they require different pressure, and so therefore That doesn't work, you know, when we figure out the runtime for everything. So we're going to look at all of these, and we'll start with the idea of you doing an irrigation checkup yourself, or you calling Tarrant Regional Water District or your water provider and line up the free irrigation evaluation. Most of the stuff that I'm going to be talking about is in this publication from Texas A&M Water University. And so when I think that Heather said that you can go by your water utility and pick up a rain gauge and then some catch cans like this. And I hope that booklet is there too, because all the instructions for you to check your own sprinkler system and eventually to set up a cycle and soak irrigation schedule is in that little booklet. You can also find that online at wateruniversity.tamu.edu. Okay, so the other major thing that we have to understand is your irrigation controller. Your irrigation controller is probably in your garage or on the in your potting shed or your storage shed, somewhere like that. But you need to know where it is, and you need to understand how it works. And so the first thing I have circled right here is the current day and time. How important is that? It's real important, because I know I live in the city of Fort Worth, and they have a water conservation plan. Not water restrictions, but a water conservation plan. And when I look at their water conservation plan, one of the things they do is they ask us only to water 2 days a week. And you are assigned those 2 days a week by if your address is odd or even. And so I have to know what those 2 days are. And then they also have a time restriction. And so we're allowed only to irrigate from midnight to 10 o'clock in the morning on our day to water. And then again, if we need another cycle, we can water from 6 o'clock in the evening to midnight again. And so because of that, we have to know that this is set properly for the day and time. Most newer irrigation controllers from the last, I would say, 10 years have a battery backup there. And a lot of them have a lifetime battery in it, one of those big round batteries, but some of them you need to put a 9-volt battery in it or 2 AA batteries in it. And so you can check this out by opening up this part of your controller, and you'll get to the point where you see all the wires and if a battery is needed, that type of thing. What the battery does is if you use electricity, it saves your schedule and your date and time for you. I live in an area where there's lots and lots of beautiful trees, but therefore it seems to me that we lose electricity more than the average person. So that could be an issue with you too. So date and time, we need that correct. And then we need to look at the next one. Notice it doesn't say start time, it says start times. This gives you the capability of having more than one cycle. And so if you cannot get the amount of water into the soil that you need in one cycle, you might want to have a second cycle, a third cycle, even a fourth if you're on a slope, depending on what that slope looks like. So remember this, cycles, not cycle, or start times, not start time. And then we have run times. This is the other most important thing that you have to do your homework on. And so Tarrant Regional Water District wants you to have these cups. Before Fort Worth and Tarrant Regional started making these cups, I would use tuna cans. My grandkids love tuna, and we would make tuna and then wash the cans and save the cans. What this gives you the capability of doing is putting these out in an irrigation zone. And then when you do that, you can run your sprinkler system and measure how much water is in one of these cups. You want several out in your irrigation zone because it also checks your distribution. So if you put a cup over by this head and it's empty, and this head over here has a cup and it's full and overflowing, you know your distribution is not quite right. And so then you need to start checking to make sure the nozzle's the right nozzle to get the distribution right, or it's not stopped up, you know, from debris. It's not old and worn out and needs replacing, things like that. We'll go over all that as we go through these. And then you have water days. And so I have an odd, is that better? That sun is really coming in that west window. And so the water days. And so what we look at there is if our city has assigned us days to water, but even if your city has not assigned you days to water, you need to come up with that schedule. So I think in Fort Worth, no watering on Monday. Tuesday is all commercial irrigations, and then Wednesday, Saturday is even number, and Thursday, Sunday is odd number. So they've got this pattern, so not everyone is watering at the same time, therefore affecting the pressure that we look at. Now, this is something you may or may not have on your irrigation controllers. I think the irrigation controller manufacturers started putting this on about 10 years ago, and this is called seasonal adjustment. And what seasonal adjustment is, if you turn your dial to the seasonal adjustment, then you'll see in your LCD screen, you'll see 100% because you have 100% irrigation schedule. But if you travel in the winter, you might want to turn your irrigation controller off, you know, so there won't be mistakes made while you're away, or you might reduce it down to 20% or 30%. And what that does, it adjusts the runtime for you, so you don't have to go back through and program that runtime, because you're going to program the runtime for each zone by using these catch cans. Then we have manual start one station or manual start all station. I absolutely love this. If you turn your dial to manual all station, and then put it back on run, every zone will run for 2 minutes. And that 2 minutes gives you enough time to go to each irrigation head and see that it's popping up correctly, it's distributing the water correctly, the right pattern, and the right distance of the throw, how far it's throwing. You can judge that. You know, we can judge it also by how our landscape looks, of course, but it's really, really good to do this. And then we could mark and take notes about which ones are not working properly. So as we go through all the things that you can fix yourself, we'll go back to this and talk about that. And then, of course, we have off. And mine stays off most of the time. If you sign up for the Water is Awesome to get an email alert or a text alert from Tarrant Regional Water District, what they have done is they have put weather stations all over the Tarrant County area. A lot of them are on the Tarrant County College campuses, and they, by your address, will know where you live. And so if North Tarrant County got rain, but South didn't, they know that by where all these weather stations are. If East gets it and West doesn't, et cetera, you know, you're going to get the right alert from them about how to water. We want to put about 1 inch of water out a week, and you can do that in 2 sessions, a half inch, or you can do it in 1, because I know some cities are only allowing, you know, one irrigation a week. This is what's inside that. If I move the door where my dowels are, you can see that your electrical supply is coming up here, but all of your wires from each of your valves is coming up there also. And so this represents each one of your stations or zone, and you have a wire coming from this valve to each of these. It's attaching down here at the bottom. Some are snap-in ones and some are screw-in ones. Then the other thing that you have is, well, of course, a little computer that's in there. But over here, what you have, usually one screw or two screws, and this have to do with sensors. And so we're going to talk about a rain and freeze sensor, and we're going to talk about maybe a soil moisture sensor for you to look at and see if that's something you want to do. And of course, what's so neat about these is while it's raining or while it's freezing, your irrigation system won't come on, because I don't know about you, but that can be a big problem. If it's raining, it's pouring, and your irrigation system is running, what a waste of water and your money. So we have to look at that. Okay, now I see two problems here, but I'm sure that you see we've got one problem here. I don't see the cap. And so what this indicates to me is the riser that was on this, where did I put my riser from, is either too short or the soil has built up, this riser. And so I could dig all the way down to here, you know, but there's a wonderful, wonderful fitting that we can all get. I think it costs less than $3. It's this fitting right here. And so what I could do, instead of digging all the way down to my lateral line, is I could dig only down to here. Now in a grassy area like this, that's real easy because your grass roots hold your soil together, and you could take a sharpshooter and make a donut around that irrigation head and then undercut it and lift it up as one piece, set it aside, and then get a trowel out and dig the little bit further you need to get to here. You want to put that soil aside to fill back in. And then what this gives you the capacity to do is, it's what we call a cutaway riser. But instead of going all the way down here, I'm going to put this right here. And this gives me the ability, if I only need it 1 inch higher, or I need it 1.5, 2 inches higher, that's what this gives me the capability of doing. And so I'm going to put this back on after I see, do I need to cut it or do I not need to cut it? And what that's going to do for me is prevent me having to go all the way down to here and replacing this riser. Now you can do that, and there are cutaways to do that too, where this would go down here and then you would cut this away, and these come in different lengths. Or you can get a whole new solid riser like this. The only reason I'm going to recommend that you do the cutaway riser is because then if you get this too tall, you can't cut this because it's threaded at each end. But you can cut little pieces off here in order to get that the exact height you need. Remember, you want the soil to come right here, okay? So anyway, this is a real easy, quick and easy thing to do. And then what we have to do is run it again and see if that pattern is as bad as it looks now. I'm thinking the grass is interfering with the pattern, and the pattern's probably okay, but you'd have to run it again to make sure. And that's where on your controller, where that manual 1 station comes. You can push the dial to manual 1 station, and then up there at the LCD screen using the arrows, you can go to the zone that you want to retest. Okay, poor distribution. Now this looks to me like this is supposed to be a quarter pattern, and it's probably in a corner or of a lawn or ground cover, sidewalk, driveway. It's supposed to be a quarter pattern. Well, you can see it's not a good quarter pattern. There's something interfering with it. And I'm predicting what is interfering with it are grass clippings and leaf clippings are getting through that swiper, and then the power of the water coming back up through the nozzle, through the irrigation system and pipe, is stopping your nozzle up. And so this needs to be marked in such a way that you're going to go back to it and you're going to pull the riser up. you know, and you're going to take the nozzle off and okay, should be real easy to do. The springs are really strong. And so I can pull this up. I'm going to get it up in just a minute. Okay, I don't know why my fingers aren't cooperating today. Okay, so I can pull this up and I can unscrew this nozzle. Everything's done by hand. You don't need to do it. And I look at the filter. You know, there's clear filters on these also. Look at the filter and maybe swish it around in some water. There is a tool that you can buy anywhere that sells irrigation supplies. It looks like a tool, cool tool. And we can pinch this and open it and then put this around the riser. Are you seeing that? And it can hold that riser up for us. There's a tension bar right here that we can lessen the tension or make the tension tighter to hold that up for us. The other neat thing about this bar is, let me show you, it dropped out. Gosh, how in the world am I going to get that out of there? Well, look at the tool right here. Can you see how it bends out? And so this is really nice to have because now, not opening this, keeping it closed, I can reach down here. Look at this. This is cool. This is cool. And pull this right back out. How about that? And so I can hold it with my fingers and then pinch it with this, clean out my nozzle, and screw the nozzle back on. Now, once I've screwed the nozzle back on, you do it by hand, not with tools. What I have to determine now is, did I have it in the right direction? And so where's that one nozzle that I was going to show you? Not that one. Okay, I'm going to find it. On the top of your nozzles, there are some markings. And the markings represent the pattern that the water is going to be flowing out of the nozzle. Can you all see that? It also will have a number on it. Do you see that number right there? 12. And so what that does for you is it tells you, I'm going to throw your water 12 feet. And I'm going to throw it, in this case, in a half circle. And remember, we have all kinds, quarter circles, half circles, you know, full circles. And eventually, though, guess what? Eventually, what happens? You're not going to be able to see it anymore. The paint has come off. It's still there, but the paint has come off. And so it's very, very good for you to understand that when you put this all back together, you got to turn it back on to make sure that it's putting the water out where you want it to be put out. Because what could happen is you didn't get that in the right direction, and therefore it's going out into the street instead of your yard. So now I'm going to show you how to correct that without doing any more digging or loosening this. Once you've tightened the nozzle down, you don't want to turn it. You want to turn this riser. Now listen to it, and you can see that I could turn it to the left, or I could turn it to, well, this one's not turning to the right. Some of them turn both ways. Some of them only turn one way. And it can go all the way around in order for you to fix that. So let me show you this one. And this is a hunter. That was a rainbird, I believe. They're all a little bit different. And so we'll see if this one does. So it can go right and it can go left. You know, so there's going to be different ones for you to do that. You have to do it while it's on, so you will get wet, but that's okay. We're going to save water, and you know, you can get a little bit wet in order to do that. And so here's Jimmy. He works for the Fort Worth Water Department, and he's popping up that head, and his fingers look much stronger than my fingers, and he's probably going to brace it with this tool I told you about. This tool is sold at any irrigation supply place or at Lowe's and Home Depot in the irrigation department. It's usually hanging, you know, out in a cellophane bag. right there where the irrigation equipment is. So also you can look for a screwdriver, and we'll go over that in just a minute. Okay, so the cleaning this out, like I said, I carry a little bucket so I can swish it back and forth. I have had some of them stopped up so badly with caked, dried mud that I've actually had to use my screwdriver and my pocket knife to clean them out. So poor distribution. You can see that the new irrigation design is do not have your heads right up to your curb or right up to your driveway or right up to your sidewalk. You want them 4 to 6 inches away, and that way you don't get the backflow so much. And I'll show you a picture in a minute to demonstrate that. But if this is next to your sidewalk or your driveway, that should be a half circle pattern. And you can see there's barely any coming out over here. And so we've got to understand why that's happening. And in this case, it was just a stopped up nozzle, very easy to take the nozzle off and very easy to clean out, screw it back down, get it facing the right direction, and we're good to go. I also want to tell you the cup cans, the catch cans that you're going to get. Great way to tell if your distribution is right. So here we have our sprinkler head that's represented by the black circle, and then we have 9 catch cans out here to check that zone. Now remember, some zones overlap, and so you're right. Your right ones might be overlapping with the next zone. In a lot of home situation, that doesn't happen so much, but in a lot of commercial situations, I run into that a great deal. The other tool that's really handy to have is a screwdriver, an 8 to 6 inch screwdriver. And I tell you why that's really nice to have is because we can test how wet and how deep the water goes into our soil. We could also dig a hole and pull a sample up and look at the length of the roots by moving the soil away and then replanting the little bit that we dug up. But this is a handy tool to have. And so you can see I put it in at an angle, you know, a little bit of an angle, and now I'm pulling it out. And can you see all that mud on my screwdriver? See, so this was what? That went 4 inches. So the water was down to 4 inches. Usually what happens, if the water doesn't go any deeper than that, you feel the bottom of it, because clay soil when it's dry is very hard. If you can't get your screwdriver in your soil, you know it's dry. You can't judge whether to irrigate when you look down at your lawn and you see cracks there. You can't judge that because the top of the soil dries out first. Roots are opportunistic. They don't like it up here. The roots don't like it high in the soil. They like it deep in the soil because they're getting away from the heat, the sun, and the water stays deeper than at the top. It evaporates here, but to evaporate down here below the surface takes many days. And so if you get your soil wet, don't be fooled that my soil's cracking. I need to water again. I need to water longer. You know, don't fall for that. Okay, now there's 5 things wrong in this picture. And so I want to point out to you that the irrigation head is not straight up and down. It's watering the street. But you can see the street is wet everywhere. You can see all these rain clouds. So it's running while it's raining, you know, and you don't want to waste water. So you need a rain and freeze sensor, or if it's freezing, you know, the freeze sensor. And it shouldn't be there to begin with. So what happens when you put an irrigation head on a corner? So how many times do you think the property manager has to call the irrigator and say, broke again. Someone ran over it again. So it's a poor design. Look over here, how green that corner is, how well maintained that area is. And so Normally we think of a square pattern for irrigation, but in this case we want to think of a triangle. And so I would put an irrigation head here. You see where my catch can is right here. I'd probably put an irrigation right here. And then I would come way over here and put an irrigation head to have 3 irrigation heads covering that corner, overlapping and covering that corner. That's what's needed here. No one's going to run over those if we do that type of thing. And so, I mean, is that something? I'm sorry, let me go back. Is that something that's happening in your area, in your home, or right there by the driveway? How many times if I run over that, or you run over that, or someone's run over it because coming into the driveway they've not got the curb just right? And so some of us need to think about moving that. And so I'm going to introduce you to a thing called a swing arm. This is a swing arm, and I can, oh, there we are. I can put this on my irrigation riser, and then what I can do is I can move my irrigation head pretty far away from where I'm running over it if it's along the driveway. And so you see how I can put my swing arm on, dig a little trench right here, and then put my, and it takes some digging to do, but it's well worth it, and not have this thing compromised by being hit by a tire or run over and broken and losing water for a couple of cycles without you knowing that this has happened. There's also a way of doing this with this device. This is called a funny pipe, a funny pipe. And a funny pipe can be done that same way. I can put it here, and then I can put my irrigation head here and secure that down. All of these come in different lengths. I think this is a 6-inch one. You can get an 8-inch, 10-inch, 12-inch. These come in different lengths and whole big rolls of it if you need to do that with the fitting. So, you know, think about this if you have this situation in your landscape. The head is leaking, but it's not putting water out. You can see that the grass on the slope is very, very much suffering from the lack of irrigation. And if you look up here at the top of the picture, you see how the irrigation heads are popping up and putting water out, but not to the degree, not to the pattern, not to the distance they were designed to throw the water. And that's because this leak here is causing the low pressure up here. It's not the slope. It is the pressure because of this leak. And so this leak needs to be repaired. In this case, the leak was being caused by this cap not being tight. And I can tell you right now, all it took was bending over and tightening this down. Now, I will also share with you, I've seen these get broken by being hit with an edger or a string trimmer or a mower one too many times. And if that happened, it leaks. You don't need to replace all of this. The caps are sold separately for you to fix. And so that's all you would have to do is buy a new cap if that was the case, that it wasn't just nice. This is a broken pipe, and I really think it's important that I show this to you because I've got sound with it. Listen to that water pressure. Now, if you'll look at the top of the screen right here, this is the road. This is the parkway. This is the sidewalk. And so imagine losing enough water to flood this road. And so you're creating a pedestrian hazard and a traffic hazard because there's a school right around the corner. That's where I was heading when I saw this. There's a school right around the corner, and those kids are going to get out and ride their bike. They're going to jump in that muddy water. Even when the water evaporates, all the mud is going to be a slippery mess, even dry. And so we've got to watch that we don't lose all that water. That's probably 1,000 gallons about every 5 minutes that they're losing there. I would hate to have to pay their water bill. It was a new landscape, and it was at a church, and the church is on the other side. And No one came to the door. I didn't see any cars in the parking lot. So I left my business card there and explained to them what was going on. They called me 2 days later and thanked me because they don't come into the church parking lot that way. They come this way into the church parking lot. So it would have taken them a long time, probably when they got a $3,000 water bill, to know, what was going on. Head not vertical. Now look at the damage this head not being vertical and distributing the water correctly. Look what's happened. It's throwing the water straight down at 30 psi, which is what it's designed to do. And all the plants, notice all the ground cover, notice all the soil has eroded. And so this is a big problem. And so we've got to dig down. We got to see if we can straighten this out. And if we can't straighten this out, we might have to go as deep as, as deep as here and pull this back. This is threaded pipe, but this is slip and this is slip. And so we've got to realize this is glued in here. And so if we pull this back and this breaks the seal, there is a PVC pipe cement called blue glue, and it is easy to put your wiper with that glue and brush it this way to get it into that seal. I'm not guaranteeing this is going to work, but I fixed many of them by doing that. Of course, this is threaded, and you don't need to worry about that, but it's a possibility that that seal could break. Doesn't always, and this is such a little slant. I bet if you dug that soil out, filled it up, put your soil back down, that's going to correct it. But I just wanted to warn you about the seal there. Low pressure. So I was driving down Coit Road, north on Coit Road from the campus, Texas A&M campus in Dallas. And I saw this and I thought, man, I need to get that picture to show everyone, what could happen. And so there's been low pressure here for quite a while. The irrigation system is not watering like it was designed to water. You can see they put gator bags, watering bags around the tree. So it must have been going on for a long time. And so this is a maintenance issue. And so the people that have their stores there, they're not paying any attention. Their job is to run their stores. And so usually in an area like that, we have a property manager and then we have a landscape company. And both of those companies should have noticed this. Why are they putting gator bags around a tree when there should be drip irrigation lines around all new trees in order to water them as a single zone? And so the landscape company failed and the property manager failed. And so what I did is I went into the closest store and asked to speak to the manager. Happened to be a grocery store and everyone sort of freaked out. I wanted to talk to the manager, And I went and he came out to meet me and he said, yes, can I help you? You have a problem? And I pretty much wanted to say, no, you do. I said, your irrigation system is leaking. Because when I pulled around into the parking lot, what did I see? I saw a stream of water going down the parking lot. Anytime you see water running down your driveway, over your sidewalk, through your landscape, in your storm drain, there's a leak somewhere. And so I told him about it, and you know what his reply was to me? I always wondered where that water was coming from. That was his reply. He saw the water, but he didn't check it out. He didn't ask a plumber to come. He didn't ask an irrigator to come. He didn't ask the property manager to check into it. So there was a lot of mistakes, right there. And so I don't want this to happen to you. So low pressure due to a leak. Not a geyser going up, not a break, but a leak enough that there was a stream of water going through the parking lot. This is a sunken head. And this happens often close to a sidewalk or a driveway where someone's run over it, someone stepped on it, someone's playing football and the soil's a little bit wet. The PVC pipe has long runs and there's a little bit of give there and it's low. or the soil has built up. This needs that little tool that I demonstrated to you earlier, to bring that up to the right level. And so this tool, like I said, is sold in any Lowe's and Home Depot. You're going to have to look for it, but you can put your sprinkler head here, and this goes on the riser, and then you can cut this the length that it needs to be to get that up out and distribute the water properly. This is a rotor. Some of us use rotors in our home landscape. This happens to be an athletic field, and the guy was asking me what was wrong. Well, do you see this wire right here? This is a flag. The mower obviously flagged this area because he doesn't want to run over the rotor, and so that's why that flag's there. But what probably happened is when they first turned on the water, where it was designed, to have 60 PSI coming out here, 30 PSI coming out, that this blew off. And when this blew off, all that water coming out of that riser created this volcano effect there. And someone found this and screwed it back on, but they didn't fill in where all that water all the soil was coming out. It's a home landscape, again, that horrible corner that always gets kicked and hit, and bicycles run over it. But look right here. What is this? Whoa, that's the irrigation head. It just blew right off and is laying down over there. My grandkids were horribly embarrassed, but the homeowner wasn't in, so I went over there and picked up the irrigation head and put it back on while the water was running. And that sort of got all wet, but that was okay because it was very hot that day. But the advantage of that is that water is running out, no soil or debris going back into the riser that I'm going to screw this into. So that's good. Now the broken head, broken nozzle could be too high of pressure. When you see that misting effect instead of a sprinkle, you're going to lose this to evaporation and wind displacement. Also, this is a design issue where they changed the design, but they left this head right here. Do you see that? What is that doing? It should have been capped off. It should not be running. This is a leaky valve, and what happens sometimes in irrigation systems when there might be some debris in your plunger when it comes down, when it loses its electrical signal. Here's a cutaway of what's inside here. And so what happens sometimes is debris can get in here and it doesn't go down and seal real good. There's an O-ring there that seals it real good. You see the screws right here on the top of this? It's real easy to loosen these and lift this up just a tiny bit, enough to get your finger in there with a rag and wipe that off. Wipe that off, put it back together, try it again. The lowest head in your irrigation system will, once this shuts the water off, it'll leak a little bit, but it stops when all the water is out of those lateral lines. But if it keeps leaking and keeps leaking and keeps leaking, in this case there was 2 of them, look what it's doing. It's killed all the grass along the chain link fence. It's going out into the sidewalk, creating a pedestrian hazard. So it needs to be addressed. Now, a lot of people ask me about this when the irrigation box fills up with water. Is that a leaky valve? No, if it's a leaky valve and it doesn't sink down real good, you're going to see that at the irrigation head. Okay, what this is the box is not draining really well. Clay soil, it's all stopped up. We've had 3 inches of rainfall and it's just full of water. A lot of time when irrigators put in the boxes, or the zone boxes will be about 6 inches in diameter. These big boxes like this are going to have your backflow prevention device in it or your meter in it. And if that fills up with water, usually what an irrigator does is dig deeper than the box and they put gravel down there. And that gravel helps keep the water away from, your components. And so here we have another pressure indicator. And you can see all of this fog and stuff. I mean, too high pressure. So when we see this type of thing, we have to figure out, is it too high a pressure just in this one zone? And that can happen because we didn't do the pipe math correctly, the hydraulic pressure correctly. So that could happen in one zone. Or is it happening in the whole irrigation system, not just the front yard, but the side yard, the backyard, the other side yard? You know, is that what's happening? And so we have two choices. We can put a pressure regulator in the valve box to reduce just the pressure in this zone, or we might have to go in the box by the meter that has our backflow prevention device, and the water's coming this way from the city through the backflow prevention device, and we would put our pressure regulator right here if it's the whole system that's overpressured. And a lot of that is because maybe the hydraulics have changed. I mean, the hydraulic math was not done correctly to do the length of pipe and the width of the pipe, the diameter of the pipe. Or sometimes the city has to change the pressure in their main line in order to accommodate something down the way. So we don't want this beautiful, beautiful rainbow, but waste of water. So we've got to check that. This is the picture I was talking about because I wanted you to see the new design says, 4 to 6 inches, because if this was right next to the curb, number one, it's going to get damaged easier with our string trimmers or our edgers or our lawnmowers. And what happens is we get what is called blowback. And the blowback goes into the storm drain, the gutter here. Now, I want you to know that most cities in their irrigation ordinances have all these rules. And one of the rules is that you don't create runoff where it's actually running. This is just wet the storm drain. Okay, that's not gonna hurt anyone. You're gonna lose a little bit of water, but not a stream. That's what they look for. Are you creating a stream of water? And if you are creating a stream of water, you got to figure out why. Is it the blowback from your heads, or are you running it so long now more water can go into the soil? Clay soil swells up, shuts it sort of off, and you can't get any more water into the soil, but your irrigation system is still running. And this is why your runtime is so important. And then also you might want to consider what is called a cycle and soak irrigation schedule, where instead of one cycle, one start time, you have multiple start times. All irrigation controllers have the ability to have multiple start times depending on your needs. And so again, creating a road hazard, too much pressure. This is a leaky cap, but it's not cracked. It's just loose from either the string trimmer or the mower or your kids hitting it too often. That's another reason to keep it away from your curb. Poor design, poor maintenance. When we looked into it, of course, it was poor maintenance. Half of the zones were not even, the zone over here on the left side of the picture was not even coming on. This is irrigation water hitting a fence or even a building. I've seen this on the side of a building. That's the calcium in our water. And that calcium is what's turning the fence white. And you can see the pattern, of the water hitting it. And again, what I can predict what has happened here is, they have the irrigation heads dispersing water towards the fence, and the throw is too long. And so you've got your parkway on the right side of the sidewalk. And so really what needs to happen here is your heads really need to be in the middle of these strips of grass. I'm not suggesting you dig up all the PVC pipe and change it. I'm suggesting you put the heads in the middle by using the swing arms, much cheaper, much able for you to do, and not as much digging, you know, replacing all that PVC pipe and moving it into the middle. And so swing arm or the funny pipe is what you're going to have to do to get it. But then you also have to think about the irrigation head dispersing the water side to side, not in a full circle, half circle, quarter circle, but side to side. Very important to know that those nozzles exist to disperse the water that way. If you look real carefully on this nozzle right here, you can see that there's a screw right here, and it's usually a slotted screw. And so I have a slotted screwdriver that I can put in there, and I could tighten this by turning it, you know, clockwise or left, you know, righty-tighty, loosey-goosey, or therefore it won't throw as far, or I can open it up by going counterclockwise, and therefore it will throw a little bit further. There's not a lot of leeway there, but I just want you to know that that possibility exists. Replacing your nozzles, not your sprinkler heads, but your nozzles is very important for you to know you can do that. And so if you have an area where your nozzle is not covering real well, first thing you do is unscrew that nozzle and check to see if it just needs cleaning out. Then, if it's still not covering correctly, it's not throwing the water as far as you want it to throw, you probably need to replace the nozzle. You need to, before you go buy a nozzle, you need to understand the length you want that nozzle to throw the water, and the pattern you want it to throw. So this says this will throw the water 15 feet, and it's a half circle pattern. It's a picture there, but it also says on here. So every single one of these that you go purchase is going to say that, the distance it throws and the pattern it throws. And so imagine you're watering with your garden hose and you've got it stretched out as far as it'll go from your spigot, but there's one more place you want to hand water. What do? You put your thumb on it real tight. That increases the pressure in the hose so the water stream can throw further. And that's what happens in these nozzles, you know, 10, 15, 20 years old. The little hole that's inside here, you know, is designed to throw the water that distance and do that pattern. If that hole gets larger, it's not going to build the pressure up to throw it the distance you want it to throw. So you're going to have to change that nozzle. Don't do that without measuring, you know, to make sure you're going to get that right distance of throw. New technology you can see on top is your standard irrigation spray nozzle, but on below is what is called a multi-stream nozzle, and then that's what Rainbird calls them, and then I think Toro causes them precision nozzles. So several companies have it out. And what happens with this bottom nozzle is the water is put out in heavier droplets. So not a lot of wind displacement, not a lot of evaporation compared to the spray nozzle. Most of the research is saying something like 33, 34, 35, 36, 37% increase in efficiency. Now, here's one right here. This happens to be a Hunter, but I'm not recommending any because they all work great. And so when I get out there, I have to do my homework first before I go purchase anything. So I would have a clipboard, pencil and paper. I would mark every irrigation head in the zone where I want to change. And I would say, this spray's 15 feet, this spray's 15, 15, 15. This is a half circle, this is a quarter circle, this is a full circle. I want all those notes on my paper. So when I go to Home Depot to buy my multi-stream nozzle, it's not going to be 3 trips to Home Depot. It's going to be 1. And this is how easy it is to change. I'm going to pull this up in order to get this nozzle off. And of course, this is all done by hand. Take this nozzle out, take your filter out, and then put the multi-stream nozzle on. Now you're going to have to do the same thing with this as replacing any nozzle. You have to turn it back on, and you can use your controller to do that with a single manual turn on for that zone. And then of course this is going to go down and pop up and do, you know, it's like pretty design. It's more efficient. And so you'll have to do your catch scan test again to see if you need to lower or increase that runtime. New technology also is drip irrigation. They have drip irrigation that is called subsurface drip irrigation that can go in your lawn. It needs a little trenching, only 4 inches deep. So they have these special trenchers that you can use, or you can put it in flower beds, ground cover beds, shrub beds. You can do it above ground, and then you cover that with mulch to protect it from the elements. So this is subsurface. You put it down about 4 inches. This is drilling. This is putting it in, filling the holes back in. 1 week after, this is in the springtime, so 1 week after installation, it could look this good. About 90 days later. This is using zoysia grass, in this case, zoysia palisades. The blade is a little bit thinner than St. Augustine, which is what most people use, and therefore it's more drought tolerant. It doesn't have the leaf surface to transpire as much water out. So whereas St. Augustine has a evapotranspiration coefficient of about 0.6, this would be about 0.4, 0.3. The other new technology is these are very affordable, what we call moisture sensors. This can be put down into the ground. There is the little computer chip in here, little battery compartment. And then what this does is it talks to this right here. And so in this case, this is a Toro product, but many of the different companies are put in it. And so this would be attached to your irrigation controller on one of those sensor buttons. The other one is showing what we call an ET controller, but actually that's my Hunter controller I've used for, you know, a long time. And I've attached a little module over here that is programmed to this weather station. So this weather station is talking to this ET controller. They also have ET controllers that can talk, store historic data in it, and they also have them that talk to weather stations. And so you could do that type of thing. This is just new technology. Some cities are given rebate for those. The next thing you might want to look at, I know the Botanic Gardens has done this. They have gone to using pressure regulated heads. Where's my pressure regulated head? So this is a pressure regulated head. And so no matter what pressure is coming up through this, this is going to keep it at 30 PSI. So I'm not going to get that misting effect and lose a lot of water to evaporation. And it'll say that on it, you know, pressure regulated head. It'll say that on it in the abbreviation, PRH or PRS, you know, so it'll say that. The other one is inline pressure regulator. Now this is 40 PSI, but you can get them in 30 and 60 and 70. You can get them in different ones to go either in the valve box, if it's just one zone, or at your backflow prevention device, if it's a whole system. Rotors are a little bit different. Rotors are made to throw a lot of water out at a pressure that is determined by the fitting itself. If you could look at the top right here, you know, you see all these little different things that we have available for us to use. The main one I want you to see is this one right here, where I can insert this tool, turn it 90 degrees, and I could pull my head up. Okay, and so what I have right here that my finger is pointing at is what is called the nozzle. Believe it or not, these have nozzles in it. And that nozzle will determine how far it is thrown and the pattern it is thrown, just like the nozzles in your spray head. Now, I want you to look, I hope that I can hold this right, but you see right there, there's a little screw that comes down and it holds that nozzle in place. Let me show you right here on the screen. You see that screw? And so let me get this out. And so this right here is above that, and I could put my screwdriver in there and I could seat it down in order to tighten that down to hold that nozzle in place better, or even get it to go further down and split the spray that comes out, the big stream of water. Now, some of them are going to have you do, again, to do the pattern, but more and more, they're wanting you to be able to turn this. And so, can you hear me turning this? Can you hear that? Let me know. But I can turn this, and it has a stop either on the right or the left. And then I can open it back up. There's about 45 degrees. Here's about 90 degrees. Here's about 180. And then here's full circle. And so more and more. Don't worry about remembering any of this, because every manufacturer of every one of these pieces of equipment have a website that you could go to with a tutorial on it. The nozzles come like this in a little tree, and you can see here's one with a real big hole, itty bitty hole. And so this is going to determine, you know, how far and what pattern it comes out to. And this is where that goes right here. And so you can see the gallons per minute that these put out. And you have to realize if one of these breaks, it's just like your spray nozzles, you're going to be losing gallons per minute. And so we've got to watch that. Now, to set your controller for a cycle and soak irrigation schedule, what you want to look at is how to do that. And so this is usually done in areas with clay soil, because the percolation rate of water into the soil is very slow in clay soil. In sand, goes right through. But in clay soil, very, 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 very slow. So if we run our sprinkler system too long, not going to go in the soil, going to go into the street. It's going to run off somewhere. And so we have to understand this. And so the first thing you have to do is determine your runtime. And so that's where we use these catch cans. We put these on. It'll help us with our distribution too, but mainly the runtime. So if we're going to put a 1/2 inch out, you can see that these are about 1 inch. And so if you're going to use one cycle and need a whole inch out, I mean, not one cycle, but one irrigation day, you want to get the 1 inch out, or do you want to get the 1/2 inch out? So what you have to do is determine that runtime. Once you've determined that runtime, what you want to do is think about having multiple start times. For an example, on my irrigation schedule, I have my irrigation system come on at 3 o'clock in the morning, and I have all my zones work, all my zones by the runtime that I have set there. But what I also do is have a second start time at 3 o'clock. And so it comes on again at 3 o'clock. And again, it uses the runtime I have programmed in there in order to run it the time that I need. Now, if I'm going to run it twice, and I have put 20 minutes in my lawn area, the first start time is going to water at 10 minutes. The second start time is going to run at 10 minutes. You see what I'm saying? And so this might sound very complicated for you, but once you start fooling with the controller, you'll see that it is not. Now, if you ask Tarrant Regional Water District to provide you with a irrigation evaluation, when the licensed irrigator comes to your house, he'll make an appointment, or she will make an appointment with you, because you need to be there. You need to be there to see what they're saying could make your system more efficient, could save you water, could save you money. And this is what you want. You want to save water, save money. And so they will program your controller for you. When they send you your report, they're going to put your old schedule on there, and they're going to put your new schedule on there, and they can quickly do the math and tell you how much water, how many gallons of water you are going to save. And so it's very important that we be there, that we pay close attention to what the irrigator is saying. Tarrant Regional Water District also on their website has a list of landscapers and irrigators that have taken their Green Pro classes, and that is on the waterisawesome.com website. I'll show you that website in a minute. But I hope that you all can do this. So why 3 o'clock and 6 o'clock, even though I'm running it for maybe 30 minutes? Well, because what I want to do is have about an hour or more between those two cycles. I have a very small landscape. Most of my yard is taken up with greenhouses, but I do have some landscaping. And so I want that water, the clay soil water, to percolate down further while no more water is going on top of the water I've already put down. Now, if you change to this irrigation method and you're still not getting what you want into the soil, the other thing that you have to think about is clay soil gets compacted. Very, very easy. Compacted, very easy. You walking on it, playing on it, your puppy dog walking on it, playing on it. Think of a clay pot you made in kindergarten or first grade. You know, remember making that clay pot? It was real, real easy to air dry it, and it got hard as stone. Well, our clay soil can do that too. So think in terms of that. And so if it's that hard that you can't get the water into it that you want into it. Now, this is in the lawn area, because in your ground cover beds, your shrub beds, your vegetable garden, your flower beds, you're keeping the mulch there. And that mulch decomposes and keeps that soil from getting real hard. But this is in your lawn area I'm talking about. You want to aerate that lawn area and then put about a ½ inch of compost over the top of it while the aeration holes are still open. And so an aerator can be rented, and you can do it yourself, or you can hire a landscaper to do it for you. Sort of like a lawnmower, punches holes in your and opens up that clay, lets that compost go down there, lets air go down there. Everything does better. If you don't want to aerate it, but you can still put the compost on it. You can do that once a year till everything, you've got your infiltration rate how you want it to get the water into the root zone. You want to do it in the spring after about your second, third, maybe even fourth mowing, because you know the grass is really growing vigorously then, and it really, really, really helps. Irrigation licensing and rules and regulations are done by TCEQ, Texas Commission on Environmental Quality. You can go to their websites, you can talk to their staff. They have, of course, obligated the cities to make sure that only licensed irrigators are installing irrigation systems. They have to get a permit. They have to bring their plan to the city. The city has to send an inspector out to make sure that the plan was done as it is on paper. Your resources, of course, your city's website, your water utilities website of your city is the best. And then Save Tarrant Water, waterisawesome.com. Texas Smartscape is a program we wrote. Gosh, I helped write that in 1999, believe it or not. That's how far back I've been teaching landscape water conservation. And it's all about the plants that you can select to put in your landscape in order to save water. Wateruniversity.tamu.edu. This is my and my colleagues' situation we set up. Patrick Dickinson has templates of designs. You know, if you're just tired of that one corner over there, it's in the sun or the shade, he's got templates for you to think about what plants you could put in either of those situations. A strip along the front of your house or along your driveway. He's got a lot of templates. There's also hundreds of pictures on that website for you to look at. Aggie Horticulture is one of the premier horticulture websites, you know, for horticulture, whether it's you're wanting to know about your lawn or whether you're wanting to know about your peach tree. And then you have Tarrant County Master Gardener Help Desk. This is a phone number. They're there Monday through Friday from 9 o'clock to 4 o'clock. And so this is a great way for you to call them. They might email you a fact sheet to give you the exact directions or plant list or things like that, or refer you to a website. But they're there 9 to 4. Very good, helpful trained people. This is the Save Tarrant Water. Water is awesome website. And so here is your weekly watering advice. They're going to ask you a little bit of information, and then you can either get that through email or text about that. And then right here is your free sprinkler checkup that you can sign up for. Like I said, they'll call and make an appointment so that you can be there. And this is your Green Pros. These landscapers, of course, to keep their landscape license, has to have continuing education throughout their whole career. So do irrigators. They have to have all those continuing education programs. But the Green Pros have gone over and beyond that with some classes that your Horticulture County Extension Agent Laura Miller and Tarrant Regional Water District has set up for them to take that extra 20 hours of classes so that they can get that Green Pro designation. So very good people. This is my contact information, but you can also get to me through Heather at Tarrant Regional Water District.